Hey, it's... Nope. There it is.
This Week in Comics, This Week in Comics, This Week in Comics, This Week in Comics, yeah.
It's This Week in Comics.
Yeah.
I'm Todd.
I'm Nick.
And, oh God, what is that?
What? Oh.
Something's happening to the burrito sunrise. Oh, dear God.
Oh, no.
Oh, no.
Hey,
It's Scott Snyder.
Scott Snyder.
get it? Look at that. I was saying, I'm sorry I'm late. I right before we went on, I was explaining to the guys that I wound up trying to put our 2-year-old to sleep, and it was a nightmare. He's I have to like rub his back to get him to go to sleep, and it's this like long kind of like hypnotic process. And I finally thought he was asleep, and I pulled my hand away, and I just hear "Mo rub a back, Dad." You know? So, but I'm really happy to be here, and thank you guys for having me.
Oh,
Yeah,
thank you so much for
being
coming.
on. And thanks to everybody in the comments. Yeah, we're here. Oh, yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And
Hi, Matt.
blessings be to all.
Hi, Chaos.
Hi, Chaos. It's burrito sunrise savings time. And hey,
Oh, is
Steve.
that what happened?
And welcome, Scott.
Hey.
So I don't even know quite where to dig in, but I think the easiest one is what came out today, because it is This Week in Comics. And we have Demons #2 is out. First of all, holy crap. You've already heard us talk about it once. Awesome. Amazing.
Oh, thanks,
Number two is fantastic.
Yeah.
Do you want to give people, because I know Comixology isn't for everybody. People like their physicals and all of that, which I love my iPad, and I think digital is really great too. For those uninitiated, do you want to give like a rundown of what We Have Demons is?
Oh yeah, sure. So We Have Demons. It's the first book out of this kind of 8-book deal that we made with Comixology. And it's the first of 3 books that are coming out monthly right now. So We Have Demons comes out the first Tuesday of every month. Then our other book, Clear, with Francis Manipal, comes out, me writing, him drawing, comes out the following Tuesday. And then Night of the Ghoul with Francesco Francavilla comes out the following Tuesday. So it's like October was their number 1s. November this month is the number 2. So next week, Clear 2 will come out. The following week, Night of the Ghoul 2 will come out, and so on. 3s in December, and on and on. So We Have Demons is the big lead off. It's the first creator-owned book I've ever gotten to do with Greg Capullo, who's like my parents. I thought I had it in here. My parents actually came up the other day and brought me 2 pictures from the Comixology party, framed. One is like me and my wife, and the other is me and Greg, and they were like, "It's your 2 spouses." Like, yeah. Greg is my comic spouse, my comic husband or wife, or both, or whatever, and
A mix.
I love him, and but it's a special thrill after all the great stuff we were able to do, that we love doing at DC, to be able to make something that's ours. So the premise of We Have Demons is, it imagines that a young girl who lives in Florida with her dad, who's this kind of sleepy local preacher, doesn't get along with him. He has this kind of this real deep faith, and she has a lot of trouble with that ever since her mom was killed when she was young. And what she finds out after he passes away mysteriously is that he was actually a demon hunter and part of this group called the Glories that have been hunting demons for generations with these blades made of this special metal that glows in the presence of evil, if you have any kind of faith, and not just in God. It doesn't have to be in a God. It can be in human nature. It can be in anything larger than yourself that's good. So she winds up is kind of suddenly she finds herself in the middle of this huge battle between good and evil that's been raging for like literally like hundreds of thousands of years, and she has to decide what to do. So she meets her dad's partner in the first issue. No huge spoilers, but he's a semi-demon, so he's this huge hulking guy who looks kind of like Greg, actually, the more I look at him, called Gus. And his whole tribe, his species of man, was wiped out back with the Neanderthals by this demon virus. But he was preserved in the ice and resurrected by Lamb, that's the main character, her father, who gave him a small piece of his blade as a kind of thing that looks like a halo that keeps him from transforming all the way into a demon. So it's got this big, over-the-top kind of Saturday morning cartoon mythology. And I really came up with it like, a while ago, but it ramped up during the beginning of COVID for me when, I rediscovered a lot of my favorite TV cartoons and with my kids, and things they were watching and reading reminded me so much of what I loved. Like, it's not, they don't find it in the same place necessarily. It's not like X-Men is amazing under John, but X-Men isn't like Claremont X-Men, which was like, much more for teens and that kind of soapy stuff that you love when you're younger. But like Transformers, the cartoon, all that kind of stuff, Knight Rider, and then watching them fall in love with like anime and go back and find all kinds of comics that they've fallen lock and key. And it was like, I want to do something that's just big, over the top fun, but also has this message and heart that's about a dad who wishes he could have left his daughter something better in the way of the fight against good and evil. And his mistake was kind of waiting and not bringing her in because he kept thinking it would get better, and it's only gotten worse. And now here she is kind of in the middle of it, with worse odds than he had, but that's not really what bothers her. Ultimately, she has a lot of faith in him, and she sees what he did behind the scenes, and she connects with him through that. So it's a really personal story about connecting with your kids, but it's also like deep fried in a burrito of like action, all that stuff too. So I wanted it to be like 90s sensibility, but like the way Greg and I love to do things, So that's kind of my whole pitch, but Greg is just murdering it. We've never gotten to work with so much time on the book.
Those monster designs are, oh man, they're so
incredible.
good.
And the action scenes and everything are just some of those pages.
Wait till 3, it gets insane. Wait till you see, because you see the mega demons and that stuff, and it's nuts. Like, it's really fun. But I love these characters. I want to do like, I would love to do like tons and tons of stuff with them, and do the adventures of her dad, Cash, and all that stuff as well. So,
well,
go ahead.
I was going to ask, is there somebody on Twitter yesterday told me that it was only going to be 3 issues?
Yeah, I'm glad you asked that. So the first arc is 3 oversized. Every issue is 35 pages.
Yeah.
So the last issue is like 40 almost. So it's like over the equivalent of like 6 issues really about when you get to it.
Sure.
Which is the normal length for an arc. And then Greg, what we're going to do is Greg wants to do, he wants to kind of return to Creech and a couple, like to do his 3-issue arc of that. And then we're going to come back. We're going to figure out like if people really dig this the way they are, we're going to keep it going beyond that to do the second arc then. So it's seasonal arcs, because there's no way that Greg and I want to be on a grind the way we were on Batman. And yet the whole purpose of the series is to make it an ongoing where we can expand it with this big mythology for a long time. So there's no way I'm just going to like leave it as a 120 page volume. But it'll be like the same kind of thing that we're doing with, or that you've seen us do in American Vampire, that where like the way we used to do, where we would do an arc and then take a few months off and then do an arc, 4 to 5 months off and then an arc, and that so Greg can recharge and dive back in. So we have a couple ideas though. We're thinking about doing some interstitial stuff with guest artists and stuff like that too, to do some of the tales from the past and that stuff. Cool. Yeah, to keep it going. Yeah. So we might actually just keep it pretty ongoing, like, with only a couple, like a little bit of a break, and then do connective stories with guest artists, and then have Greg come back for the main ones. So we're playing around with it, but no, it's not like a 3 and done thing. It's the whole goal is to make something that expands out in a whole kind of big world of story.
Well, yeah, definitely. Go ahead.
I was going to say, I love that your explanation sounds ridiculous, but that all fits into pretty much the first issue. It's wild, and it actually makes sense. I'm pretty sure if you step out from it, that sounds like what happened, how, what? But there's a lot in those just 2 issues. It is like a full arc, which is great. I'm glad that it's still something expanding, because if it's all this setup and then it's like that's the world, it'd be lightly disappointing, because it's like there's so much to be done. I also love that it's an atheistic, faith-based like world, which is really interesting. I think I dig that a lot.
Yeah, I wanted to do something that was really about faith in that way, because, you know, and members of the Glories, like the group, are from all different faiths and that too. So it's not really about faith in any one religion. It's not even about religion itself. It's about, you know, believing in our better angels and believing that there's taking the leap of faith to believe that, you know, our best impulses are better than our worst, and that hopefully there's some kind of design or plan, or at least mystery, that is benevolent behind all of it, and not something that's, you know, predatory and cruel and, you know, vacant in that way. So it's that, you know, and I think as a dad, the older I get, the more that really moves me, you know, like it's like going over the you know, the break, like going overseas or going someplace like where you stand in a, you know, like when we were in Angoulême, for example, in France, me and my wife, I remember being like, I don't want to visit these old churches, you know, I'm not religious. But then going and standing in them and not having a religious experience where you suddenly believe in that particular specific, you know, version of the faith or the Bible or anything, but feeling the generational quality and the humility around people hoping and believing that there's something more than just what meets the eye in that way, that you feel the connectivity of it, that you're part of a collective story, that you're part of something that's more than just meat and flesh and bone, and that feeling. I feel that when I'm like the Court of Owls touches on that, like in a scary way, but you know, being downtown in New York in the oldest districts where we used to explore when I was a kid growing up on the Lower East Side, like that, the feeling of all the history and the generations there, it's makes you feel tiny, but it makes you feel connected to a larger story. And I right now I feel like it's a super important thing, you know. It also is just like for my kids, everything, I feel like every fucking thing in the world like drives them to self-importance. All the algorithmic kind of stuff they, you know, engage with, whether it's, you know, even just like searching things for Google, or the way they get their information or news or music or anything, it just recommends like more of what they already like, you know, and that stuff. I want them to kind of step outside that and feel like a lot of the joy in life, or the experience, you know, that winds up mattering is connecting with things outside of your comfort zone, and being uncomfortable, and realizing that like you're never going to know all the things that you want to know, and that's okay. And every sort of, you know, every mystery you explore leads to something bigger, and it makes you really unsettled. But I love that about it. So the book really, I know it sounds ridiculous because it's also like giant, you know, trucker mustache demons like slashing people with huge swords on planes, and like F-bomb dropping, you know, demon spawn everywhere. But it is a book that's personal. It is like a love letter, you know, from a parent to a kid, just being like, listen, I'm sorry things aren't better, but this is what I hope you kind of look around and see in that way. So I love it. I love working it.
I love that there's that much depth to We Have Demons. That's great.
Oh yeah, and it feels like we're on issue 50 at this point. Like it's such a massive scope of a story, and the characters and everything are so well done that it feels like a book that I've been reading. Maybe it's because I've read it so many times. I don't know, but it feels like it's something I've been reading for a really long time. And when you I think in our class you shared that you were kind of writing it for your 14-year-old in mind, and when I was like, oh man, I have a 14-year-old, so I just shared it with him yesterday. He read 1 and 2, and it was this great like looking over my shoulder at my wife and like handing him my tablet and being like, hey, read this and don't tell mom, kind of a thing. And he loved it, man.
Oh, I'm so glad. Yeah, I mean, I really am like, as I get old, I feel like when I was younger, a lot of the stories were about my fears about, my own failings and myself and that, like, and your own anxieties. And then as a parent, or a parent, like, a couple times now, I feel like so many of my fears are more about the world and the things they're exposed to and the things I worry about for them and the things I hope they can cling to in different ways. And this book is very much that kind of a book, where it's like, it sort of has all the fun of the metal and death metal and that. And those books were quite personal too, but they were about comics. This book is very much about, like, I really hope that my son, for example, like my son is, my wife is very, like, she grew up Catholic and is very kind of like not a huge organized religion fan, as much as she's spiritual. My son is in a school right now that is a Christian school, and we did it. He was in the public school here, and then when everything shut down with COVID, we didn't know what to do, because the school was sort of like, here's the work at the beginning of the day, and and now they've recovered and they're doing a better job. But at the time, it was just a mess. So we wound up going over there, and I was really nervous and skeptical about it, only because it's very light. It's not like a heavily religious school in any way, but both of us are pretty progressive, just about wanting things to be secular, about, like, the academic experience in that way. But what I found is that it's really been kind of wonderful for him. Like, he enjoys the meditative quality of it. He enjoys the feeling of learning about different religions from around the world and how they can give people both, again, a sense of connectivity, but a sense of hope and all of it. And it's been a very interesting thing to see it through his eyes. And again, he's not particularly, I think, religious in a literal way or a specific way, so much as he loves the idea, and it's making me love the idea of faith in a broader sense, and so yeah, the book is very much for him. So meanwhile, like, I was just complaining about him because he didn't tell me about this recital.
Yeah, kids,
go to, and then, right, I know, it's teenagers, oh my god.
Yep.
He's amazing and, like, wants to watch Breaking Bad with me and all that, and we have the best time. And then the next day I'll be like, can you pick up your shoes? And he's like, God, Dad, why are you always telling me what to do?
That sounds right.
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah, exactly.
So this is a similar question to what I had, because I was curious I also am curious what the end, like, when you were on before, you talked about how you wanted things to come out differently depending on, like, the style and having a different idea about how to distribute different versions of comics and things like that, which I think is really interesting. And then, like 6 months later, you've got, like, a slew of Comixology books out, which is like, hey, that's what he said he wanted to do. That's really neat. Especially, and now with Substack, this is a great question. What drew you to Comixology versus doing the self-publishing route?
That is great. I'm really happy to talk to you guys about it, and just also to see what you think. Like, anybody watching or anything, I want your opinion, because I think the thing that we're all trying to figure out is how best to proceed in, like, a really uncertain time in ways that are responsible and exciting, and we believe will strengthen comics in some ways that are important. So for me, I was working on a bunch of the books, like tinkering on them with Greg and with Francis and with Francesco, and I teased them, so you could see, if you go back through my social media before the pandemic, like, little hints that we were working on different things and that. And another one, like Barnstormers, there are a couple of them that I was working on, just to however we could on the side of the work we had. And right before the pandemic hit, I just started being like, you know what? I promised myself that at 10 years, I would take a break from DC. We're doing death metal. It's a perfect time to go out and take a break. And everything's in good hands with Marie and James and Josh and so many great creators and everything. Like, let's just take time for ourselves. And then the pandemic hit, and I was like, oh, well, I want to do some of these books like Noctera at Image, and I want to do them. They're direct market book friendly, really friendly books, like direct market friendly books. And other books that I was working on, like Barnstormers or Canary, I'm not so sure, like, in the way that I know that they wouldn't tank. It's not like we'd be like in the red and in trouble necessarily in the direct market. But I started thinking about all these different things where I was like, am I being like selfish, just doing book after book at Image in the direct market, in the way of like, am I clogging up the pipeline there in that way? I demand different resources than other creators, not me demanding them, but like a book that we're doing that they then want to promote because we have big people on it like me and Francis, or they devote resources to, you know what I mean? In that way, is that taking away from people that need it more in these times, that are doing books at Image that need the attention? Is it also going to be a huge demand on readers' wallets? Like, you're picking up, 4 books by me in the direct market, 5 books by me. Am I just cannibalizing my own, industry by being like, hey, buy my stuff, when there are a lot of other people that have great indie books out now, and the market is competitive, and I never think of it that way. And you see me on, as all my friends, the same, all of us are on there supporting each other. We don't think of it like you'll buy my book or theirs. But the hard truth is, a lot of the time people wind up buying one book or another. And it was making me very uncomfortable, the idea of like doing all these books in ways that would cost a lot of money for people to pick up, that would eat up a lot of oxygen and space in the direct market. And also the direct market itself was really uncertain right then, where I was worried about like, what if I can't pay the artists a good wage, because I can't afford to pay all the books, regularly. That was never the plan with those artists. It was always like, we'll squirrel away time on them, and then when we can, we'll set them up at a place like Image, and we can draw against the royalties if we need, or we don't have to, maybe not. But all of it became something where it was like, well, I'm going to lose everybody to go. But I don't want them to feel like they have to suddenly go back to Marvel and DC in big ways and recommit, and I don't want to either. And DC was great. They came to me and were like, do you want to come back and recommit and do more stuff here instead of your plan? And I was like, what do I do? And
of course they did.
Yeah, I mean, and I was talking to Marvel too. I want to go there at some point as well. I have a bunch of ideas for them too, but I just didn't want to do it yet. And I wound up speaking to Eric at Image, and they were really committed to doing Noctera and doing Witches again, and doing Undiscovered Country, and all of it. And we have all those books. Like, so I was like, well, how else can I do these books if I want to do them in a way that would be A, like a good wage for the artists, B, that would address some of the things I'm worried about, like crowding the direct market, and is there a way to make them really affordable, like by you pay one subscription price and you get everything, So I wound up talking to Chip, who runs Comixology, because Will, the editor on all the books, was friends with him, and I didn't know Chip. And he was like, look, we're looking for somebody to come in and show that we are a good player in comics, where Thought Bubble is on right now. It's supposed to be there, and Comixology sponsors it. They sponsor the Artist Alley at New York Comic Con. They're, they publish a bunch of people that are my former students, and, interesting new voices. And so he was coming to me and he was like, look, what we're trying to do is show people that for a single subscription, they get access to all these classic comics, all these new people. And what we're doing is our comics are going to come out from Dark Horse, and they're going to have flexibility in the way that the creators want to do them at Dark Horse. We want to help the direct market that way. If some comics have good variant potential, you can do variants with them. Do you want to be the first person to do that kind of thing? And so I really thought about it, and I went back and I spoke to everybody. Like, I spoke to Marie at DC, being like, just as a friend, like, what do you think? And I spoke to James Tynan, like, for many, many hours, and retailer friends, my guys out here at Fourth World, just, really trying to kick a lot of tires and be like, am I not seeing something that's detrimental about this? Because my belief deeply, and I know that some retailers might argue with me in brick and mortar shops, but I just don't agree with the idea that digital should be held in a competitive position to print, where digital should be the same price, the same date, the same content, because then it forces you to choose one or the other. My belief is like digital should be subscription based and a minimal immersive experience where you can browse the books, you don't download them, but you get to see them. And then the content is slightly different, where then you want to go to the store and buy the physical because you want it for your shelf, because it's a box set, because it has extra material back matter in it, because it has a different cover, because it has I mean, the truth of the matter is, like, the thing that I feel like people don't remember sometimes is that when I was a kid, you could fucking get I had a comic book subscription to my house. Like,
Mhm.
when I went away to camp, like, I had my comics were always delivered to my house. So I never had to go to the store, but I went to the store every single week. Forbidden Planet, 11th Street and Broadway, the first location, the upstairs, downstairs, for anybody that lived in New York City and remembers, they had all the models downstairs. They had the big Tetsuo 28 and Godzilla upstairs. Like that, I went there with my dad because I loved going there, and I loved going there because I loved the books and I wanted to get things like that I could keep, that made me feel like I had, I was in on the ground floor in these series I love, whether those statues, all that, collected editions, and talk to the staff and be part of that culture. It's like a sports bar where you go there because you love talking to other people that like what you like too. So my point is that I genuinely believe it's the same model that's replacing everything right now, and in a healthy way, where you stream things and then you buy the physical for the stuff you love. You buy that stuff,
Right.
And that's what my kids do in every other medium, like every medium. And I feel like if you wind up holding digital off because you're afraid of it, and it's like, don't use it for anything except to distribute Marvel and DC comics at the same price, you're going to wind up getting fucked over, because ultimately, like for me, when the weather is terrible, I'm going to buy my comics digitally and Marvel. If I can't get out because my kid is, at home, or I'm going to buy it. And then if I had to pay the same price and I didn't get to just browse it, I'm not going to buy it again. You know what I mean? Or I'm not going to go to the store. So I'm just saying, like, forcing them to compete is not the right thing. Instead, to me, it's creating a system that's synergistic. And what we're trying to do with this line is that, honestly, like, we got 8 books, and the point of doing them 3 every month this way. So like these 3 will go, when these 3 are done, we'll do the next 3. We're probably going to do like 1 each month, and then they'll all be going, after the first 3 months. So it'll be like
Cool.
1, and then, 2, 2, 2, and that stuff. Like, but it'll just be going like every month, like that. Was that I wanted you to feel that there was a benefit to getting a subscription, both because it would be affordable to you and you could like read all of our books for the price of 1 book, but also you discover all these people that I think are great, from new people like Ariella Cristantina, who I'm doing a book with, Chain, who did Adora with Mark Bernardin, and Chip has Afterlift, and Jock, and Jeff Lemire. And then there's people like, Raphael, Stout Club doing their first big book, Hailstone, and Astonishing Times by Frank Barbieri and Eris. And, they're taking really cool chances on new people. And then there's also like Batman Year One and Dark Knight Returns and Sam. So you can go and fall in love with comics, browse it, and then go to the store and buy what you want. So I believe in it, and I could be totally wrong. Like, it could be something where,
future.
Not great, but I wouldn't be doing it if I didn't think that it was something that on the other side of the pandemic, at that time, I really believed, and I still believe wholeheartedly, and no less, even more so now, that it's something that will strengthen comics on the other side to start to move towards a model or a template that embraces subscription-based, browsing-based digital to get new readers in the door, and to have old readers, experienced readers fall back in love with comics by having the chance to explore stuff the way Netflix is, the way Prime is, all that is. So that's what I believe. That's my whole pitch, like, for why we're doing it the way we are. And it's been working out really well. I mean, like, we are doing We Have Demons. I can't get into the specifics because I'm technically not allowed to yet, because Dark Horse wants to announce it itself. Sure. So I just be jumping the gun, and I want to give them the breadth to the space to be able to do their own PR. But we will be doing it in a way that's extremely direct market friendly, where we want to do variants, some single issue stuff and all that. So you will be seeing that with some of the books. And other books you'll see in beautiful trades, because I don't believe that they'd be the best fit for single issue direct market. So anyway, that's my dream
right there, is digital singles and then trades for the ones that I really love. That's literally what I'm doing right now, and that's what I love about this. Is I in the comments, I was going to pull some up, but it's very split. People are seeing the things, and like some people just don't like digital, which is fine. I also think as tablets get better, once the entry level stuff starts getting to where they are now, I love my iPad with comics. I just do. It's about the same size. I think it's perfect, but I'm buying the trade of the thing I really love because I want to read it again. That way.
I want that hardcover on the shelf, and there's something about sitting there with the book, but the accessibility of it is a big thing too. There's people that right now can't enjoy digital comics to their fullest, but when they come out in print, then they can. So it's a little bit for everybody.
Well, and to be clear, my goal isn't to steer you away from print to digital in any way. That's not what I'm saying. What I think, and I'm not saying that every comic should come out digitally before they come out in print either. What I'm saying is that I'm trying to, like, with this, show one way in which they can work synergistically. Like, I believe that the print sales will be higher because there was a digital first program as well, the way it was with Injustice, because people get the buzz of the book and then they want to get the book physically because they heard about it or because they read one issue of it and whatever, and that. So if you like print and you don't want to read the digital, it doesn't hurt me at all in any way because it comes out in print from Dark Horse. Like, I'm all about it. Go ahead, read it however you want. As long as you pick it up, I'm hugely grateful. So none of it is like, hey, please move away from print. I promise you this, like, the only reason I was okay doing the deal at Comixology or excited, I mean, one of the most exciting, if not, one of the most exciting things was the fact that they told us when I was talking to them, we have this deal that we're just announcing with Dark Horse. That was new, like, because I was talking, it didn't like happen overnight. I was talking to them for a year plus. And so they were like, the deal wasn't even finalized with Dark Horse when we began talking to them about the books. So the whole idea of like, well, digital is making a deal with print when they don't have to. Like, digital, Amazon and Comixology could be like, who cares about print? We're just going to do digital.
Right.
And, but their commitment was to do print, and not just do print, but do print in a way that would serve the direct market by doing things that were not just pure trade all the time, but some books single issue, some books trade, thinking of ways to do variant programs, all that kind of stuff was like, see, this is one way at least that both things can work together. So that was the idea. None of it is like an either or. I wouldn't do something that's like, read them in digital or, you don't get them, or read them in. It's the opposite. The whole point is the opposite.
Yeah, it's not like there is a definitive. Everybody's going to be different. I love being able to go into bed and read my comic sideways and not have to worry about my comic book. That's great. There's other times when I'm sitting at the table and I want it all laid out and I want to see the comic and I want to feel it. It's perfect. It's good to have both things. And it's the same reason why I have Apple Music on my phone, but I have a big vinyl collection too.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying.
There's room for both.
I love to be able to go to work and just bring my iPad with me, and I bring like between Marvel and DC and Comixology, I 50,000 comics with me. I mean, it's
pretty great.
At whatever mood strikes me, I can find something on that because sometimes it's like, oh, I'm not in the mood for this or I'm not in the mood for that. And having that ability to just read whatever you want.
Court of Owls again.
Well,
you gotta do it.
I think what it is for all of us is that like we're figuring it out because it's a really fluid moment. Everything is changing. Everything is kind of in flux, and there's a lot of things that are scary and uncertain about that, and we deal with them every day, and in all kinds of ways in the industry, from distribution to paper shortage to everything. But there are also a lot of exciting opportunities in this moment to, I think, make moves that will make comics stronger on the other side and are pushing boundaries creatively in different ways too. And I see it across the board with things like some of the stuff people are doing at smaller companies like Vault and Boom, and some of them that are doing things at Substack, and the way people are kind of empowered to use their social media differently. All of it, like, we're at a really interesting crossroads moment, I think, where there are a lot more avenues to drive in than there were even 5 years ago for creators. And a lot of it is like what you feel most comfortable with, or what you think is going to make the industry more robust, more inviting, all of that on the other side. And that was kind of the driving, that's the compass that most of us, the people I know that I'm friends with, use when they make these kinds of decisions. Like, why Substack? Well, it's not just take the money and run. It's what's the point? Like, why would I use it? Like, what can I use it for in a way that I think would make me feel good going to sleep at night, and would allow me to produce content I couldn't otherwise somehow. And that, so it's I'm like fascinated by this moment and have endless conversations with Tynan about it, who's smarter than me with it, but like him and Chip Zdarsky and everybody, like, we talk all the time, like, God, it's such a weird, spooky, wonderful, weird, exciting, terrifying moment. Yeah. So we're all just figuring it out. Like, I don't know that I'm right with it either, but I can tell you, like, everybody is trying things they believe in. That's all. Like, I believe in what I'm doing, and again, even if I'm wrong, I'll admit it, but it's working well so far, Yeah.
It shows. I mean, you can tell just by what we're getting now in comics. I've been reading since, I don't know, 24 years now. I've been reading comics. A lot of those years were as a kid with my dad's short boxes, so they don't really count. But in the last 15 years, just what we're getting on the shelf and what creators are putting out there, it obviously we're at a different level. It doesn't matter how you're taking it in. Whatever you're getting right now would be 10 years ago, you would just freak out about what is available.
That's the way I feel.
It's astounding.
Dude, just the other day, Todd, I was reading, like, I was catching up on stuff, and I had a couple things that, I had early looks at, and it was like Cy Spurrier's, new book, the one with the no dialogue one that, that he was pushing today. It was awesome. Newburn, the Chip Zdarsky book, Nice House on the Lake, which James gave me things ahead of, and the furthest place from what's the furthest place from here, and I was great. All of it, and you're thinking Saga coming back, and I was catching up on Monstrous and you're like, how is the comic world? And then stuff happening at Marvel and DC is exciting as well. Like, there's just, to me, it's so vibrant, and I understand there are a lot of things to worry about or be frustrated with when it comes to all kinds of aspects, like logistical aspects of shipping and variant, speculator market, and stories. If you don't like a story, cool, that's on you. You don't have to like everything. But the things people are trying, and the way that they believe in what they're doing, and the risks people are taking across the board to make things they like, that's exciting to me. And I feel like there's such a huge wealth of great books on the shelf across the board. I mean, but especially looking at the indie or the creator-owned market, you can't throw a stone without hitting a great book or a good book right now.
No.
Yeah. Like you said, it makes it tough there, because I find myself making those same decisions, like you said, where it's like, all right, I got to put one or two of these books back because there's so much. Yeah, it's like I'm waiting for Image to announce their digital subscription.
I'm waiting for that
type thing. I mean,
well, I think about that a lot with Substack, and a lot of it, like, I believe in the idea that the future, the model coming, is going to be a largely subscription based, like huge library of stuff that's accessible to you digitally model, and that that will allow for special things to come out, like not just the same issues, but the issues with new content, the issues you can't get digitally, all this kind of stuff to come out in print, where it's a special experience either way. Like, and that relationship both things could thrive tremendously, I think, with that. And I don't know, I'm a big fan of putting as much like content free or as cheap as possible available through subscription, because if they're fans, they're going to follow you to the stuff that you do that will cost eventually when you need it to. So I'm like, everything I'm trying to do with using the Substack the way I am for teaching, the things that I'm gonna, if I make things creatively on there, they'll be not really behind the paywall so much. I think I want it to be a place that feels accessible, and you know, you can see what we're doing and making at Best Jacket, and if you like it, then when it comes time to buy it for real, then you can buy it for real. But everything is hopefully as affordable and available as possible.
Speaking of, first of all, I feel like we could talk about this for like 3 hours because it is such a, no matter what comic style or anything you're into, everything you just said and what we're talking about applies to every facet of the comic book industry right now. And it's such an interesting upheaval. I love it. It's fascinating at the same time as like, you don't know if you're going to get your books next week. It's really weird. Right. Especially right now.
Yeah.
So you've got a couple other books that I would love to pick your brain about, because one, the 3 that you put out is super interesting because I believe all 3 of us had a different favorite one, which was super cool. We liked them all, but we each had a different one. My favorite is Clear. I love Clear. I love it. I'm a big VR fan. I have 2 VR headsets, and it's something that I'm really into, the escapism and all that. And I've dreamt about a day when I would put my glasses on and the world would look different. As a utopia, in like a nice future, whereas not so much in Clear, but I still love the premise, and a good detective story is awesome. What was it a detective story first, or was it a world first in Clear?
It was a world first. Like, so if somebody isn't reading Clear, like the premise of the book is that in the near future, we can all connect to the internet neurologically. Big tech figures out how to do this. And the big thing that everybody does is they veil the world like a veil. It's like filtering or skinning or the world however you want, so that the superstructure legally still has to be there, but you can kind of put a cosmetic sort of screen over it however you want. So like if you want to look out and see like 1940s noir glam, everything is black and white and has that sheen on it. If you want to look out and see, manga setting, everything looks like manga. If you want to see porn setting, everybody's naked and they want you and whatever. So it's everybody living in their own kind of subjective reality, and it's a murder mystery where the detective always keeps his setting on Clear. And where it came from was Francis and I. It was the same kind of thing. It was like after metal, before death metal. I was working on Justice League and that stuff, and I was like, Francis was working with me, and I was saying, on the other end of death metal, if we get to do death metal, and that's a whole other podcast. How hard it was to get that done and through, and because I had pitched it as what it was, like when we did metal. If metal worked, could we do this sequel? And they were like, yes. And then they were like 100%. And then as we got closer, and there were all these kind of weird, there was a lot of weird volatility with AT&T and whatever. It was like, but we had to like really hold fast and be like, the story never changed. Like, I'm so proud of that story. But anyway, the point I'm trying to make is, as it was getting towards that moment, I was like, I need some creator-owned stuff that's just like treehouse, like. And Francis and his wife and his daughter like came to visit me and my wife, and this is back in 2017, I think 2018, and stayed with us. And we were like, what are our biggest fears for our kids? And I think this was one of them, was that the idea that they seem to be retreating or pushed to retreat into these kind of subjective corkscrew, like rabbit holes of, oh, you like this? Well, then have more of it. Not, well, you want to be challenged by something that doesn't feel comfortable? Well, that, like, nobody wants that. And, well, what if we create a future that represents kind of our worst fear for our kids, where the country has become something where they faced like a challenge in the Red War, in this way that we sort of lose very quickly we lose like what would be World War III, like very quickly, and not in a huge violent way, in a way where it's an issue too. So you'll see all about it. But I really love the
I
idea.
don't remember that. Cool.
It's coming. But in response, we kind of retreat into this solipsism of being like, yeah, well, everyone just veils the world however they want, and that's it. Like, if you wish we won the war, then there's a veil for that. Like, you can look out and see America as though we won the war. Who cares? So anyway, the point is, like, I love that book, and that book is probably the most like urgent, kind of immediate book out of all of them that has a lot to do with the moment, like right now, and our fears about it and that stuff. But it came from that. It came from every single book was me and my co-creator talking and being like, look, I have this idea that I kind of like, so I went to Francis and was like, God, we're both worried about this. What if we did a book where it was like about everybody connecting to the internet neurologically and creating these filters? Initially they were called fills, like fill the world with whatever. And he was like, I love it. And then I created the mystery and went back to him. What do you think? Demons was the same thing. I'm like, Greg, like, I want to do something that's just called like Scott and Greg have demons, and that's it. And it's like, all right, whatever. Yeah, I love that. A Spawn, whatever. So I was like, oh, and then I, thought about it and what I wanted to do, and I brought it back to him, and I'm like, what do you? And then we designed the characters, and everything is like the way every single book is it's that creator and me making the book together from the ground up, based on a very simple concept that I think comes from my conversations with them about our collective hopes and fears. So Barnstorm was like with Lisa, a totally different kind of book with Tula. That came from me and her like talking about the idea that there's a moment in the 1920s, the Gatsby era, that feels really similar to this moment where it's kind of right after a big pandemic, the influenza epidemic. It's right after World War I, these cataclysmic events. And people just seem to kind of be like a quiet, fragile moment in between that and World War II and the Depression and all this stuff. They just want to be like, let's have a good time and party like rich people, while poor people are struggling. And so I wanted to do a book that was like about that, but it was fun and kind of weirdly whimsical. And so it's about a guy who's a pilot and flies a biplane. Like he claims to have been a pilot in World War I. There's kind of a secret about him, but he's flying a plane here, and he goes from town to town and like gives people a ride above their town for $1 so they can see it. And one day he thinks this party is for him because he always calls ahead to the next town being like, oh, guess what? You have this famous, handsome pilot coming. You should all get excited. And he thinks this party is for him, and he lands right in the middle of it and crashes into it. And it's a wedding for a woman, and a young woman doesn't realize it's not for him. And anyway, they beat him up, and like the next morning he wakes up and tries to escape the barn he's been chained in, and the bride is there with a shotgun. She's like, "You're taking me with you. Like, we're leaving together." And she's wearing her wedding dress, and she's like, "That's it." And that's the beginning of the book. And that's me. That's again, cool. It's like it was me and Lisa going back and forth being like, let's do something that shows the desperation of two young people that feel like they can't get out of this. The only way that they can kind of, enjoy life is to almost burn it all down for a moment and just like buck the system. And so they fly onto they're running from the law, and they like fly onto different beautiful, rich properties on the weekends where they're having these big parties, and they have fancy clothes that they've stolen in their thing, and they just dress up, act like they're at the party, and then steal shit from the place and then fly to the next thing. So I love it. I went down a rabbit hole with it, but my point is that every book is different as they are. The similarities between them are that it's me and the co-creator talking about what we want to do, like what kind of story we want to tell, and then growing it out of that, so none of them are like me pitching a premise, having it approved, and then finding an artist. Each one is like, Dan Panosian, you love Westerns, I love Western, let's do a Western. What kind of Western would you want to do? Well, I'd like to do one that's like really dark. Okay, well, let's do one that's dark, Let's do it. He's like, I always love mines. All right, well, let's do one about a mine. And then like just that, just rolling that way. Like
that's great though, because that makes it a true passion project then. And that always shows through that when you can tell that the writer and the artist and everybody's clicking together and doing what they love, it really comes through on every page, I think.
Thanks. I hope it's clear on these because it's true. Like,
Yeah.
Night of the Ghoul, obviously the third one that comes out in 2 weeks, the number 2. Like, Francesco and I are both classic horror fans to the max. Like we all the Universal monsters, and it came from us talking about in 2016 when everything was so volatile and everything being like, both of us kind of just going back. I know, like going back and like rewatching our favorite old black and white horror movies, and I noticed he was posting all these lobby cards of stuff, and I was like, are you doing the same thing I'm doing where we're like just revisiting like old black and white horror movies? And he's like, yeah. And I'm like, let's do one where we make up a classic monster, but that fits this moment. That's all about like, what would a classic monster be today? And he's like, let's do it. And that's where that came from. So
that's
the
cool.
Ghoul.
That's another question. That's awesome.
Yeah. The Ghoul in that one was like, it's like the granddaddy of all monsters. So it's almost like it's a parasite that hides in a human host. And it's a plague builder. So it creates plagues that will like level a whole civilization entirely. And there's this group that hunts them and that stuff, but nobody knows how many there are. But the one that in the book and is like one of the strongest and oldest ones, and you don't know it's in you. You know what I mean? It's like alien. And anyway, it felt right for this moment because it's about a thing that kind of a monster that believes that civilizations become too myopic or nearsighted or complicated, and that it's time to remind them how like weak they are and level them with something. And so it felt right, and it's responsible for the myths of all these other monsters, vampires.
I love that
because of the diseases it's created over the years. So anyway, I'm just like
I love the flashback part is amazing too. I love like the it's not too much of a spoiler. I don't think the movie part is such a cool flashback way to like, it's another story within the story that's not a true flash. It's really cool. I dig it a lot.
Yeah, like the idea, if you're not reading that one, is it's about a guy who's kind of a ne'er-do-well wannabe filmmaker, and he discovers the remnants of what was supposed to be like the greatest horror movie of all time, but it was destroyed in this deadly studio fire in the 40s. And he finds the writer-director still alive in hospice care out in this rest home in the desert in California. And he goes out there to confront him and be like, what happened? And so it cuts between that present-day story as it gets creepier and darker and more terrifying, and the original, like the remnants and pieces of the original film, which Francesco draws in black and white and that stuff. So
and it's cool.
It's fun because they're both full stories. Yeah.
It's great.
Yeah.
This came up earlier too, and we talked a lot about, I guess you don't have to if you don't want to. Super curious about what you think about the Image Printing Union. Big fucking deal.
I know, and I feel bad because like this week, I mean, I'm terrible with like lately with social media and all that stuff too. Like, so I kind of came to it a little bit late, but no. But I mean, my genuine belief, I know everybody at Image and love everybody at Image. Image is a big home to me, and I feel it should be a great working environment for everybody that's there. They deserve the best, and I know that without getting the reason that I think a lot of creators that are there are not sort of weighing in publicly like myself in that way, in a big way, is because we're trying to also find out what's going on in a way. And my belief too, I did the same thing at DC a lot of times, and it may be right or wrong, but I know there's kind of a desire a lot of the time to discuss it and to jump on publicly and weigh in on those things. And I do believe, again, I think everybody working at Image and the people that I know that are asking for the recognition of the union are fantastic, and they deserve a lot of what they're asking for in that regard too. Everything, I wish them everything they want because they're fantastic. The other thing is though that I think again those of us that have access to those rooms behind the scenes and are trying to figure out exactly what's happening and to encourage the places that we work to do those things, or to be to do things we're proud of. Like, that's kind of where we try to operate sometimes. Do you know what I mean? Like, in that way, like for me at DC, it was a lot of the time there'd be things that wound up being big public firestorms, and it was like I did sometimes say things publicly, but a lot of times it was more about like, okay, it wasn't about the thing that is happening out there. It's about trying to do the right thing and find out what's happening, and also push for things internally in different ways, and deal on that level. So all I'm trying to say is that I'm learning about it now. Like today, I had some conversations about it too, and I think I have a lot of faith in both the people that are higher management at Image, and I have a lot of love and trust and faith in the people that are the Image workers that are looking to get recognition for the union. So without kind of trying to be too like fuzzy about it,
That's fair.
It's one of those things where it's like,
that was more of an answer than I was expecting, to be perfectly honest. Because this is it's a lot, and I think it's important. I mean, I'm not attached to any of these things, and I think it's super big. And I think if you're gonna have people work under you, they should be able to live a good life, and this is an important step to getting there. And hopefully they can find an amenable spot where it's recognized and they can get what they deserve.
Yeah. I mean, like, part of it is just understanding for me, like, the logistics of what all of it means. Like, I don't, I don't know what it means. Like, if Image were to immediately publicly recognize the union, does that mean not being able to push back on some of the demands that I assume that they would push back on in different ways? Does it mean that they're bound in different, like, I don't know what I'm learning what it all means.
Yeah. What it is, the scope of it.
Yeah. And just I think the what I'm trying to say is this: like, if it makes some of us, or I always felt this way at DC, so I won't speak even to the Image thing right now because it might be a totally different situation. But a lot of the time at DC, when something was like a hot button topic for a good reason, publicly, what a lot of us, or some of us, like, we're already doing, we're having conversations behind the scenes to try and figure out what could be done, what was happening, why that was allowed to happen, all those kinds of things, and pushing in different directions. But the desire, I think, for it's very easy, and you want to go out and just be like, hey, this is what I think, this is what I think should happen, because the thing, I think a lot of times what people want to hear. But I think sometimes for me, my real desire is to do things, like, to be a part of the machinations in a good way behind it, and to wind up not being kind of performative. That's all for me. Like, I don't want to just go on Twitter and say something without doing not just due diligence to understand it, but to actually do, try and do work that I think is good work. I'm not even talking about this issue anymore. I'm talking about, like, many, many things. Like, for me, I think the last couple of years have been a big wake-up call in that regard, that trying to put things into place through Best Jacket, grants, and other things that we're going to be announcing soon, real work where you're trying to, like, not do the thing that is immediate, and sort of addressing something that day for that, but more long term in different ways. And that might be wrong, it might be 100% wrong, but all I mean is, with the union and that stuff, it's too big an issue, and too I think important an issue. And I believe in the idea of unionization. I believe in the idea of the workers at Image getting, like, whatever is gonna make them happy. I know how hard they work and how crucial they are to the process, all that stuff. And I like them all as people too. I want them to be happy. but I want to understand. I just want to understand what's happening a little bit better before I would go out there and be like, this is exactly what I think should happen right now, this minute. You know what I mean?
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
you don't throw up a veil just to look like you know and have an opinion. It's okay to be clear and just not have an opinion right now. I appreciate that. I don't want you just saying something when it's like a month from now, you're like, oh, I learned a lot of stuff and that was really wrong.
Well, it's such a complex
would be
thing
so
too
much
that
worse.
there's
It's a lot.
probably things that you might agree with here and things you might not agree with there. So it's a very large thing. But
I appreciate the perspective. It's cool.
There are definitely things that I think, I like that you read in the demands for the union that you're like, that should just be a part of office culture in general. And of course,
right.
So yeah, 100%. And I hope Image does recognize the union in that regard in all kinds of, ways. But at the same time, I don't know enough about the issue to feel confident about saying that should happen right now, because I don't know what it means to recognize union in terms of what you're then bound to agree to, because there are other things in the list of demands that I know would be difficult for Image to to be part of, the having more sway over books and cancellation of books and those things that's a very touchy issue, I think, in a lot of ways for publishers, and that without weighing in on that personally, I just that if recognize, that's what I mean. I'm learning about the issue of what it means to both unionize, what it means to recognize a union, what it means to be in negotiation. So I'm that, like, I'd like to do a little bit more due diligence about what all of it would mean,
For sure.
That's it. That might be wrong, but that's, it's that.
I don't think that really can be wrong. I mean,
no, we'll all find out at some point, I'm sure, and it'll be interesting. And I just hope that whatever the outcome, we just move like closer to a more sustainable, open comics, and that would be great. Whatever gets
we're all
there,
I think what it boils down to, without like dwelling too much on it, is that we're all rooting for, like, Images. I love Image, and where everybody's rooting for it to land in a place where it is exactly what it is at its core and wants to be, and that on all levels, where it's the best. It's a great home for creators. It's a great home for people to work, and all of it. I don't know. And again, I'm not trying to be like a dick, like a diplomat about it, and be like,
you're fine,
and not go out there and be like, fuck Image to recognize union and that. I just,
No.
I know everybody on both sides of it well enough that I feel like I want to talk to everybody and be like, what's going on? Like, what is it? Before I go out there and be like, that. Because I used to do that all the time. I'd be like, hey, Rob Liefeld, let me fight with you. And like that, I loved it. I was all, all that stuff, and then you get older and you get more like, let me take a second and just like look at this and see what the situation is and understand it better. And people speaking out, by the way, I'm sure have done that. I'm not knocking people that say one thing or another about it as though they're not doing that. I just mean, for me, with the 2-year-old and all this stuff in my home life, it's hard for me to like feel like I'm thoroughly, in command of like the facts on things sometimes.
Oh yeah. No, I get that. I'm not a big social media person, and we'll like about to be going on live, and they'll be like, how about this big thing? And I'm like, I don't know what you're talking about. Who did what now?
They'll be like, did you see that this person did a video about you and this and that they hate your stuff and blah, 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 or think that you're this, and I'm like, but that's cool. Like, no worries. Like, that's totally fine. They can, hate everything I've ever done, and I appreciate them checking it out, or they can think that I'm this or that, and that's their right, or whatever. But no, I'm not up on it the way I used to be, and I feel bad about that, but I also feel like
that's probably
good about it in the way, like,
yeah.
Well, like the pandemic, I'm telling you, like, not to get, again, I'll say this in 10 seconds and then be done, but the pandemic made me reprioritize a lot of things, with my kids, my work, with, all of it, because there was a scary moment where it was like everything's kind of falling apart, both, at home with having to have the kids home all the time, with work, with my wife works at a hospital, she, worrying about her going in with COVID rampant. Our 2-year-old, when he was 6 months old, he had like a bad surgery because his skull fused very early in life, and he needed a full craniotomy. And he's fine now. I mean, developmentally, he's good. But he was on a ventilator, and there was a lot of worry about whether or not he'd be extra susceptible to COVID for lung problems. And so we were just like, all of it was like, what the fuck is happening? Like, what am I doing? Maybe I should just go back and say, DC, all I'm going to do, let me go back to like just writing the next event, Metal 3, that, and like whatever safe thing. And my wife was great. And it was more like, do the thing that's going to make you happy in these crazy times in that way. And I think, this, like doing the stuff that we're doing at Comixology, doing Best Jacket, all of that has been about not just reassessing and trying to be creatively the best person I can be in comics. And I promise, like I am trying, but to be a good member of the community in that regard as well. And to grow up and be like, how do I use Best Jacket? Just be less like reactive myself about things that I know I used to be more like. You could get under my skin more easily and I'd lash out or be, whatever. So
quick to oppose. Yeah.
No,
I
mean,
remember
like,
those times.
I
was
don't
the
think
same way. It's like you pushed a button.
Yeah, I don't think it's a big secret. Like, I mean, when I started at DC, I mean, I was a pretty big hothead. I think a lot of the time because I was like just suffering from like legitimate imposter syndrome, where you like get your dream job way before you're ready for it, and it's like you're suddenly on your favorite character before you feel like you know how to write comics well, and all of it. And so there was definitely part of me looking to get fired, and I think it was always to bosses. It was always to Dan or to Bob, being like, oh yeah, well that. But there was a lot of that and a lot of like behavior that, was sort of self-destructive. And I think now, in that regard, like fighting with authority and, acting out in that way and challenging, your boss in those ways. And now I feel like just trying to just be, a better member of the community, but also like set like because I have people in my class, I have people that work under me, all that stuff in different ways, like trying to set a better example than when I came in and was so like, like bad boy kind of whatever, like I'm going to do my stories and this is the way it has to be with my co-creators who are my best friends. I don't care what anybody says, like that, there was that. And it just, you burn out fast that way. And so a lot of it
sounds
like
sustainable.
It's not sustainable. It's not.
So this was asked earlier, but
I was just going to pull that up.
Nick had a similar question that he wanted to ask too, so it works out. Is there any up and coming artists that you would really love to work with? The talent pool is ridiculous right now.
Or a really well established artist that you've never had the opportunity to
one
work
of each.
with. I'm sure your DMs will just start filling up as soon as you start saying names. But
no, there are a ton. I mean, established people that I've been circling for years, like Olivier and I are friends, like Copiel and I'd love to do something else with John Romita outside DC. I'd love to do something else. Like there are a ton of established people that, I'd love to work with. Sarah Pichelli, I've been talking to, over the years at different times, and a bunch. But new people, it's just like, it's also really exciting. Like I'm doing stuff with a couple now, like Ariella Cristantina, who's really pushing me in interesting ways. I feel like also, like, I see people like, I don't know, Martin Simmons on Department of Truth, like that whole style, that Dave McKean style. That's like, it just reminds me of like so many things I want to try. Just seeing it makes me open my eyes. couple people, Hayden Sherman, I really love from The Few and Thumbs and a bunch.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, there are a ton. Bilko Sebely, also over on Supergirl. I actually wrote her right before I knew she was on Supergirl and was like, I'd love to do something together. And she's like, we're just about to announce I'm doing the Supergirl thing. I was like, man, Tom.
Oh, I guess that's kind of cool.
Yeah, no, it's great. Yeah, but no, I mean, the list goes on and on. You can't even scratch the surface of it. There's so many good people right now across the board.
Nuts.
Out of control. Yeah.
It's wild. I love it. It's so nuts when like you open up stuff and you're like, this is somebody I've never heard of, and look at how fucking amazing it is. And I feel like each month I'm just like, who is this? How? What? And
Where
it
did
just
they come
keeps
from?
coming.
Yeah.
It's amazing. Oh my God. It's incredible.
What is there anything new that you can tell us about witches?
Yes, there is. So, I mean, here's the two things. So we're going to bring it back on Halloween next year. So that's
there's a date.
Right?
There we go.
Yeah. That's our
right.
goal. Like we are
All
doing,
right.
it is happening. We will do it.
Awesome.
The reason that we're
Live
been
one
so
more year.
nonchalant about it is because we are literally like, I am like in the writer's room for the TV thing with Jock. They're doing, I don't know if it'll ever hit TV, but it has a pretty good chance. Like it has a pretty good chance. I think so. And it's like really, really fun. Jock is a part of the art design and the story design. And so we're really thrilled. And that the way that the TV show is structured, it kind of arc 1 and Bad Egg are combined. And then arc 2 is what we're working on as a kind of season 2, but we have to develop it for the purposes of season 1. So everything that we have will be like ready to go comic wise, right now, like pretty much like it's
Cool.
developed for that, but it's what we wanted to do in comics. It's just
That's neat. That's cool.
Really refined, like been through the fire. So yeah, I hope it's just we've been living witches like nonstop for a long, like the actual super intense writers room stuff is 2 weeks away, where it's like, they have to produce 2 more episodes of it and that stuff. So I'm really excited. I love being in there. I love the job too, but it's nerve-wracking.
It's a lot. That makes sense. It's got to be. Is there a different energy that you have to bring to it because of this? Do you feel more expectations because it's like, obviously comics, you already know you have the fans there. Is it a little bit more nerve-wracking going into a new medium where it's like, it's kind of out there on its own?
Yeah, it was
like that backup.
Well, it's weird because I think the thing that like I'm totally wrong and talking out of my ass with this, but like my feeling is like that Hollywood, they're so used to people that like want to use or have been using other medium because that their ultimate goal is to get to Hollywood and like do that they're very attuned to that, and there's a kind of like like I think a pressure in the room if that's what you want to do. I don't want to do that. Like I don't have any desire to move from comics to write screenplays or that stuff. The reason that I decided that I wanted to do witches was because they offered me and Jock the chance to really be a part of it in a big way, and we had been dying to go back to it, and this was the best way to go back to it. And it's animated, and the idea of being able to do it in a way that would bring his art to life in an R-rated, really cool kind of way where we'd really have fans in that way, where it would be like super kind of like not parallel to or derivative of, but like an elevation of what we tried to do in the comic, but in a new way where it was expanded and his art would be key, was really exciting. So it was kind of like, I want to do this one because there's a potential to make it something really special, and it's a pretty raw, open, personal book. And if Jock can do it together and we can be in the room together, why not? Like, you never get to work with your friends that way.
Yeah.
But it's not like for example, when I'm talking to people and they're like, hey, if you were to option these Amazon books, I mean the Comixology books, like, you know, so how would you write them all? And I'm like, I don't need to write any of them. Like, that's not what I care about. Like, I care about finding good people that want to make them things that they love and can elevate them in different ways. And I want to make the comics, you know, that's where I am. That's where my
That's
head's
cool.
at. So I feel in that way it is different, but I feel like we're a different beast going into the room, me and Jock, because I don't like, the whole purpose is just to make this show special and not anything. There's no ulterior motive.
Not to
in that way,
evolve from there.
yeah, it's fun, you know, and I like, we had a lot of choice in the people we're working with in the room, and they seem great, and I don't know, I really like it. So far, it's good. And I believe this,
Nice.
like, if you're taking the class with me, anybody, like the 101, it's really like reinforcing, it's definitely reinforcing like some core beliefs about, like, if you understand story mechanics, like and you come at it from the right place about, you're building your story from what is it about, what does this character, you know, mean to me, why are they the protagonist, what are they trying to achieve emotionally and psychologically, like the priorities that I'm trying to teach in that class, I'm trying to teach because I believe that they're, you know, sort of core to Western storytelling in some ways, not just comics, you know, that they're part of kind of a Western narrative that like applies to in an interdisciplinary way. Even if there's like adjustments to be made, if you're doing TV or film, like those priorities still kind of stick. And that's why I try and bring in material from other medium. But doing this like really reaffirms that, where it's like, yes, I have some things that take me a minute to learn about televisual terminology and that kind of stuff. But storytelling wise, it's actually gone really well. Like, you know, I had to write the pilot and it went over well, and that got us into the room. And so all that stuff has been really, it's gone well because I feel like the stuff that I'm trying to teach in the class, or that I believe in story wise, you can apply to other things, I hope.
That's cool.
So far.
Nick, can you attest?
Yes, I'm loving the class, by the way.
Oh, thanks.
It's my favorite Wednesday of the month.
Oh,
How dare you?
There was another question too that pertained to something earlier. You mentioned wanting to write for Marvel. Is there, like, I think you've said before, Wolverine was one that you would like to write?
Yeah, I have a few things in my head. Wolverine is definitely one. Captain America is the other one that I have like a really big story for. But I also have one for Ghost Rider, and I have a Punisher story I really want to do one day, like a big Punisher one. And they all kind of connect. So it's the kind of thing where it's like, if I went there and I really got to make inroads, like if we hit it off and they liked what I was doing and, you know, I liked being there, the goal would be to start in any of those places that were available in a big way, and then build out to the other places a little bit, the way we did it.
Yeah.
So not to step on anyone's plans, but to be able to kind of build story outward like a tree, you know, that way from one of those characters. So
step aside, John.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd love to do it. Yeah, I have big like stories for each, and I like
cool.
I know the culmination too, where like it's like Ghost Rider, Wolverine, and Captain America teaming up on motorcycles for this whole thing, where they're like, because they all also have like parts of their history they don't know from the past, you know, that they were a part of in different ways, and all of it as well. So anyway.
Release the Marvel Snyderverse.
Yeah, so no, I'd love to do it. I'd love to do it someday. I hope to go over with Greg. I think it would be huge fun.
That'd be cool.
If it worked out to be able to go over with Greg and do some cool books over there. So
you and he doing Wolverine, that would make me pick up a Marvel book.
Well,
I'd be there for it.
Right? We'd have a lot of fun. Like, I love what Ben is. Ben is one of my close friends, Ben Percy, and I know him from the book world. We wound up, it was weird. Like, he wrote a story collection the same time I did, and I like taught his stuff, and he was teaching mine, and we became friends long before we broke into comics. So I love him, and I love what he's doing with Wolverine. But yeah, it'd be fun to get over there at some point and be like, do that kind of hardcore, you know, just hardcore straight up Wolverine stuff with Greg would be fun.
That's cool. We'll let you get going soon since I know you're kid tired.
I'm
too.
good. It's nice to get adult talk.
Yeah.
Nice to get some adult
We
talk.
do have an important question from chat. What is your favorite bird and why?
Bird, owls, of course, right?
That makes
that's
sense. that makes sense.
That makes sense.
for
Yeah.
obvious reasons. So yeah,
Groups of owls in particular.
I know, right? Parliaments of owls, all of that.
Parliaments of owls. I saw that at Blockbuster for 99 cents one time. Yeah.
They like they were like, why didn't you call it a parliament and all this stuff? Because I was like, I was working on Swamp Thing at the time, and I had to type Parliament over and over for Parliament of Trees.
Yeah.
And I'm not typing Parliament.
I'm not doing it.
It has an
love
I in it. I'm not doing it. It's like totally confusing.
That's such a good reason for it to be court and not parliament. I love it. It's just I was sick of the word.
It really was like I was just sick.
It sounds better too. Court of Owls just rolls off the tongue. Parliament of Owls is clunkier.
I agree.
I think it's a good choice.
Right?
Thank you, Swamp Thing.
Yes. Yes. I missed that book. I love that book.
Have you been? We'll get to a couple more questions because you talked about you get some. Obviously, you have lots of friends across. Do you have anything that you've been reading currently? You don't have to say your favorite because that's got to be like super tough. But it is This Week in Comics. Do you have like some current things that Swamp Thing made me think of it because Rom V's Swamp Thing right now? I'm adoring.
No. Mike and Rom are doing amazing things over there, and I love it. So I've tried to be really vocal about that run. I think it's really visionary and fantastic, and deserves it deserves a big readership. Rom is on fire. I read Blue and Green. I read
Blue and Green is great.
Layla Starr. Oh my
God,
it's
fantastic.
Yeah, Rom is just great, and I wound up talking to him not long ago. We were supposed to get together at Thought Bubble right now, but I couldn't go because family stuff is just too much. And with everything, we didn't know if the travel would be open and all of that and everything. But I did a class. I recorded one to post there. But we were supposed to get together and have a drink there. We wound up getting on and Zooming. I just was like, listen, I love your stuff. I'd love to connect. Just friends. And I can't say enough good things about him. But James is king of the world to me in my mind about the series. That I love everything that guy is doing right now. And he's like my little brother. I mean, I've known him since he was in college and took a class with me when I was an adjunct teacher teaching comics. So
cool.
Seeing what he's doing, Nice House on the Lake, Department of Truth, Something's Coming to Children, Blue Book, he's incredible. I mean, there's so much that I do read a lot, Stillwater and Newburn, and I'm trying to think if you name a book,
Man-Eaters the Cursed. Have you checked this out?
I have not checked that one out yet.
I love this book.
I really like.
I read it today. It came out today.
I really liked Man-Eaters, though. Yeah, I can check that out 100%. But
it just finished. It's 4 issues.
All right, I'll check it out. Yeah, I think there's just. I mean, it really is I feel like it's a golden moment. So, but I mean, in Marvel and DC, I think what Phil is doing on action is really exciting. Tom is just killing it. Taylor on everything he's doing, but just right and left. That guy is unstoppable.
You're reading Nightwing?
Yes, I'm reading Nightwing. And Bruno is out of control. So
that is way too good.
Last issue.
Whoa.
He showed me a peek of the coming one, the one where it's one continuous thing, and it's insane.
Yeah.
That's the next one, right?
I'm so excited.
I know. I was trying to do the math to see how many copies I had to buy so that I can just put it on my wall in my basement as a trim.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, no. I mean, and I mean, so again, there's few books that I don't pick up and really like these days, and I think it's it's strange to me how vibrant the landscape is. Almost, it's like it's just great.
Man.
Ice Cream Man.
Ice Cream
Oh,
Man.
Ice Cream Man's great. Yeah, I read the first volume.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah, Ice Cream Man. I love anthology series now too. I think with Razor Blades and Silver Coin, the Michael Walsh book. I just read that all the way through 6. The last one being his issue. The finale of the first arc was.
Yeah, that was the arcade. Was the last one, right?
Oh, that was Josh, right? So the 5 must have been the
5 was the last of the first arc.
5.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it was like in the Salem. It was like the kind of.
Yeah.
It was almost like the Crucible kind of a thing with the the goat with the eyes and all that. That was like Mike doing his own thing. But yeah, I just read the Josh Williamson one and loved it. The
That was
arcade,
great too.
The Horror War or whatever it's called, like the horror.
So good. I want that video game. That's what really. Only problem I have with it is I need that video game now.
I saw they had like the Easter eggs. It was like Spawn and other things in there too. It was great.
It was
cool. Silver Coin. That's what I mean. Like, there's just, I really feel in a weird way like the pandemic, as much as it it scared everybody in terms of like obviously aside from like the literal horror of it in life, like in all of it. In terms of the industry, it scared everybody into their kind of respective zones, where it was like a lot of people that I know that I'm friends with were like, life's too short not to be making shit that I really want to make right now. Yeah. And that's led to, I think, a lot of great comics, right now, where people are taking really cool risks, and they're trying new things. And whether it's like just their comics or how they make their comics or how they release their comics or how they do cons, all of it. It's like people are taking greater control of their careers and trying cool things. And I think it's leading to tremendous books.
Stray Dogs.
Oh, I loved it.
Stray Dogs exists.
I wrote
the
Tony, book. I wrote them before issue 1 came out because I saw the ad. And I always do this. I write image and I'm like, oh, can I see that? And I saw it. And then I wrote Tony on Twitter and was like, I love this book. And I wrote a blurb. I have a cover quote for it or whatever. Because they gave me the first 4 issues. And I read it and was like, I love it. And wrote a thing all about it.
Well, it was after they didn't put you on the trade. So this is ridiculous.
Maybe I'm somewhere else.
Maybe Volume 2.
Yeah. I swear I did do it. So
are you reading That Texas Blood?
I am. Yes, I am reading That Texas Blood. I'm only. How many issues is it in? Because I'm not that far into it.
He's starting to wrap up. They're starting to wrap up the second arc.
Yeah, one more.
Yeah, I read the first arc and I loved it. And also just Phillips' art is just incredible. Is it Joe Phillips? Is that right?
Now you caught me off guard.
Well, the artist. And in fact, also I didn't realize it's
Condon and Phillips. It's Phillips. It's Condon and Phillips. Jacob Phillips.
Jacob Phillips.
That's right, Jacob. Not Joe.
Jake.
I don't know why that was up there. I'm terrible with that.
I didn't realize that's Sean Phillips' son, also.
Yeah.
Oh. I didn't know that.
And I'm like, can you imagine like a great artist, the son? He's like just incredible, like just knocking it, out of the park. It's unbelievable.
Well, and I think Jacob did coloring for him on some stuff first, and that's kind of how he got into it.
Yeah, that's what some people were telling me, but it's amazing. It's just amazing. Yeah, it's a great series.
The second arc is that book is just. I mean, it's just going crazy.
I have to read Far Sector.
Did you read Far Sector? Okay.
I haven't. I'm not a big.
All right.
Not to be like to alienate people or anything like that, but Green Lantern was like one of my weak spots at DC. That and Flash, although I caught up a lot on Flash, but Green Lantern, it wasn't one of the things that was native to like my reading DC stuff. I was more of a grounded like Bat Family,
street
Green
level,
Arrow, Green what?
Street level.
Yeah, a little. I was always a little more street level, plus like maybe Superman. And then I fell in love with Cosmic all over again in like 2015, 2016 when I was wrapping up Batman by rereading like Cosmic Odyssey and the Jim Starlin stuff and all of that. And like, that got me back into it. But then I started reading Green Lantern, and before I started Justice League. But yeah,
I have a Green Lantern tattoo right here. It's my favorite thing. But even for non-Green Lantern fans, this is like
Far Sector is probably the most accessible. I think
it's incredible how
I've read.
I keep hearing
Jemisin
great things about it. It's
incredible.
I just haven't had a chance yet. Yeah, but I've heard terrific things. I know. Is that Jamal? It's Jamal Campbell. Is that right? Or is it? Yeah. Yeah. I know. I keep hearing how great it is. Yeah.
Do you? Oh yeah. Do you ever back upcoming Kickstarters?
Yeah, I do. I do pretty often, honestly. I think. I mean, I don't know how often is often if you do it like a lot, but yeah. I mean, I'm on there. I do back books pretty frequently. I think I tweet about them when I do it usually and that stuff. So I really was very inspired by it when I did Noctera through Kickstarter and learned. It was like a huge learning curve for me just to see how many people are creating great comics on their own through Kickstarter. All right, thanks.
And that's the actual Kickstarter one.
It was new. I didn't know that much. So yeah. Well, I just finished issue 9 of that. That one is coming back huge. Like that. We're going to announce the I know we said that it's guess what? It's going to be it got picked up for TV for option, but the details of that we're going to get to announce soon. And then we have Blacktop Bill special coming out.
I'm stoked.
Dennis Allen. It's so fun, dude. It opens
it
literally opens. It's the conversation that started in issue 4 between Mother Hubbard and Bellwether, where they're like, well, who is he? And he's like, well, it starts in Florida. That dialogue literally is the narration over the issue. And it's I know you think it's he was probably one of those guys that had a nice family and, that kind of thing. And everyone would say he was just quiet. And you see a guy walking around and his daughter's going to sleep and he tucks her in. And it's the kind of guy that then would go out to the shed and you open the doors and you see all these terrible weapons in the shed. And be one of those guys that everyone would say he was so quiet. Right, exactly. That. And then they're probably one of those guys. And then an axe hits that guy in the head, and they're nice. He actually was much worse than that. And then it goes who he was and all that.
That's awesome.
Yeah, and Dennis Cowan is killing it. Kent Williams on inks and Chris Sotomayor on colors, and it's out of control. So that and
I love the C cover.
Yeah, I got that C cover coming.
Oh my God, it's so cool. I'm
Yeah, and then the 7 starts our new arc in January, and it's easily better than our first. I'm not showing what it is. If you read it, it starts with Val and them hunting for Eos, and you learn that I won't ruin it, but it's really fun.
Cool.
It's just an effortlessly fun book to work on. I love it. So yeah.
I'm excited for it. We're big fans of it here, and I got the trade so that I can keep my ones all nice and not grab them all the time. It's a fun read, along with it's a fun world. If you guys don't know much about it, the last time we talked to Scott, it was just about to come out. You can go check out the interview on our channel. But yeah, it's great, and this arc was really cool.
Yeah, that one is really
ending was great too. I was very happy. I was like, oh no.
I love it. It's one of those series that just clicks for you, where it's easily for me. I mean, and Tony, where it's just fun. You just work on it, and you're I know what I'm doing with this. I love writing it. There's no contortions. It's just I'm writing what I love.
That's cool. It shows. I mean, it just flows. It's just. I read the trade already. I was like, oh, I'm done. That was great. Where's more?
yeah. It's all coming. It's a genuine ongoing. 7 is January. The Blacktop Bill special is December. The 7 is January. 8 is February. Just going and going.
How big is the Blacktop Bill special?
It's
a normal issue.
It's 22 pages. Yeah, it's just regular, but it's it looks. You'll see. Dennis just killed it, so I'm really excited.
Sweet.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, it's very readable, I guess. is a good way to put it. The Noctera and we have demons, both of them, and witches being mentioned again, are all books that like.
I love it.
The titles.
Like, those are the fun reads for me.
Jasper's not letting it go. Jasper just wants witches.
Well, no, they're coming. I know we should have gone back to it, but I'm going to tell you that the problem. My computer. I should probably like go back into my house because the computer it's on red, like it's going to die.
Oh, okay.
Oh no.
But if it dies, I will sign back on. But I will go back into my house. I think everybody is asleep in there, which is
you've made it.
No babies, but
no babies.
Like no whammies, right?
Yeah, right.
People of a certain age. Yeah.
I hear you.
The reason is because we were gonna do Arc 2, which is the second season of the TV thing, which we're ready to do it like 2 years ago, and then 3 years ago, and Jock got hired to do design work on the Last Jedi, and like he was just like,
what are you gonna do?
There's no way I can turn this down. Like I get got to design stuff from our camel and whatever. It
so Star Wars is to blame.
It's to blame. It's to blame.
It wasn't good enough to delay witches.
Then what happened? What happened was they agreed to do Metal, which was like a huge fight with them because DC was a mess with that at that time. Between like they didn't know what thing they wanted for their event, whether it was like Doomsday Clock or Metal or this, and we were like, I was just like, we can have them all, like it all works, like it's no big deal, but like they can all work together and it's fine, like we can figure it out. But anyway, the point is that whole thing, it was just too much. Like he had that and then he finished that and then I was in the middle of Metal and it was too much and it was just like just too crazy. And so now then the TV stuff ramped up and then now we're in that, and like once that we are bringing it back. If I am wrong about this, you can all hate me forever. But
we might.
That's the plan. Sorry.
Halloween 2022. That's which I haven't said anywhere, but that's what we've already said to Image. So that's what we're doing.
Dope. Awesome.
I'm gonna start like a little calendar thing here with like days left.
The rings. You make the rings that you take
like,
apart.
Yeah.
With a picture of me like
I'll just send a tweet. I'll just be a reminder every once in a while. I'll be like, hey Scott, you only got 200 days left.
Yeah, Doc, I see something that says Jock. I'm gonna go in and plug this in, so you're gonna get like a tour of the black, like
tour of the black
yard. Oh, nice. You can't see anything, but the hopefully nobody is awake in my house. But
bills,
right? But the hang on, let me just turn off the things. But yes, I saw a little comment that was like Jock was almost the drummer for The Cure. That is true. And Jock is he's an amazing drummer. He was in a rock band for a long time, and now his son is in a great rock band called Roll Doll. It's like ROLLDOL.
Oh, like the author?
Yeah, well, it's like spelled
play on
things, so it's ROLL like, and he's great, Aubrey, and yeah. You never, like, you see Jock on drums and it's incredible. He's amazing.
That's cool.
Yeah.
Man, the man is layered.
He is. He's like the
my goodness.
In all of comics. He's like, there's not a person alive that will say a bad thing about Jock ever. So
that's the best. That's all you want to hear about the people that you really like is like, just don't let them be terrible, please.
Right. Yeah.
He's like the farthest thing from terrible. So here, computer plug. There we go.
Assuming Witches comes out next year, Halloween, or everyone's terrible.
Exactly. Or we're all horrible.
Well, as long as they don't make any new Star Wars, we're fine.
Yes. Well, he won't fall for it again. How about that? It'll be good.
Unless it's a TV show for Star Wars, then I can understand.
Yeah,
those are good.
I know. But I mean, back then it was also like there was, still Mark Hamill, like getting to design stuff for Mark. I mean, I remember when I met him. I brought my kids to meet him because they were so excited. It was right before, it was right after The Force Awakens, right before Last Jedi, in New York Comic Con, and
I had met him before because of the Batman stuff, the animated stuff, but he
Yeah.
wasn't. It wasn't like the Star Wars association was always there. He was always like Luke Skywalker to me, but like it had kind of it wasn't as like in the zeitgeist. But the kids were all like, "Oh my God, it's Luke Skywalker!" Da da da. And he was walking towards us, and I remember like, the people were kind of hustling him past because we were all backstage at New York, and I was with my cousin. Like I had brought all my family because they all wanted to meet him, and his people are kind of pushing him past, being like, "Mark, we don't have a lot of time. You really can't do this one." And he turns to them and he's like, "Stop. I am not the Mark Hamill you're looking for," like this, and then sat with my kids and me, and so I was like, just the nicest.
That's real nice,
right? I was like, it was just like he was just like who you want him to be in that way.
Yeah,
I just want to hear the laugh in person.
I know, once. Right? The Joker
yeah, because he's my Joker. Like when it comes down to it, like if I'm gonna choose a Joker, it's Mark Hamill, and then he's also Luke Skywalker. It's ridiculous. Like, what is that? How are you both of those?
He's like Harrison Ford, like embodying all these iconic things. Like
it's wild.
He's just so nice, no ego, just fantastic. Can't say enough good things about him.
That's cool. There was, speaking of Batman and a movie, somewhere up here, Tyler asked how you would feel about Court of Owls being adapted. He also threw in something about Robert Pattinson. I can't remember exactly what. I think it's a bonus.
Well, it was if they were to have him. No, it was. How would you feel if Court of Owls showed up in a Robert Pattinson Batman movie?
Oh. I mean, talk about that, or just Court of Owls in general,
or just
I'd feel great. Hey, honey, my son. I would feel terrific about it. I mean, like seeing things adapted in other medium is always a huge thrill. So there's no like, I don't know. I'm not precious about that stuff. So if somebody wants to take Batman Who Laughs, put them in Fortnite and do something cool, or the video game has Court of Owls.
They were gonna get the court,
they were really nice. They actually flew me and Greg out and like had us, look at it and talk to them about the court and all that stuff. So we really got a good peek at that and involvement in that. But I'm really like happy to just see somebody else love them enough to try and do their own take on them. That one of the reasons we wanted to do our own stuff at this point, I think, is not because you don't like what's being done with them. I'm excited to see it. It's just that I'm happy to thrilled to have control over the things we're making finally, so that it's not like you get to watch from the sidelines, and even when they're very nice to you, you're still on the sidelines, to your own stuff. So this way, I feel like we actually get to kind of have our stuff and get to decide what happens to it.
Stays personal.
Yeah,
that's cool. I have been enjoying. I'm glad that the Talons seem to stick around in the Batman verse so far, because I think I like more variety in it, and I think it's an interesting concept that I'm glad to see it lives. I'm glad that it's not just contained to your thing, even though I think it's the best version of it. It's been cool to get to see it live on in Gotham, because Gotham really needs more life and all that. Right? Exactly.
I love that about it. That was the fun of that whole thing, was like trying to create layers to it. And
I was reading All-Star Western when that happened too, because I was current and I was pulling All-Star Western, and I was like, oh shit, like this is like
I loved All-Star Western.
Oh my god!
I mean,
it was so good.
Jimmy and Justin just killed it. It was so good, and
it was really cool.
it was so fun. It was the idea of like Gotham and all. It was just so fun when even when they tied into metal with it. Everything was like just nuts. I loved it.
Yeah, I wasn't ready for it to be a tie-in. I was just pulling All-Star, because I pulled like I was such a sucker. I got every new 52 title, and that was great.
There was a lot.
I loved it. There was so much good stuff. I couldn't help it.
I know it gets a bad rap, but there was a lot of there were a lot of really great books from that thing. I mean, weird, fun, odd things too, like Empire. and Resurrection Man, and I mean,
that's right. I have
Brandt's
those.
Superman with Rags was really out there for that, you know, and beautifully so. And then there was also like, you know, like Gale coming back to do Batgirl, but differently, and I mean, there was a lot of weird
Batwoman
choices, like Wonder Woman as like, you know, with Cliff and Brian, and just risks and odd things, you know, happening all over.
Yeah.
With that.
Batwoman and Batman at the time were like rocking my world. What was going on? I was just like going from like this amazing high concept Batman story to like this crazy conceptual art style in Batwoman, and I was just so pleased. I was like, this is peak comics. No one's taking this away from me.
Well, I think one of the things, like the problem with the New 52, and I was saying this in an interview that I did, I don't know if I'm overstepping by talking about it, but I mean, there are a lot of problems that I'm aware of only peripherally about, you know, the way that some people had stories crushed and all that kind of stuff. Like, I was lucky in that regard, or, you know, in that, like I said, I think I had some self-destructive tendencies back then when like, if you said to me, you had to change this and it was something we had agreed on, I was just like, well, then I'm not, you know, just fire me because I'm not going to do it. And I'm amazed I didn't get fired a bunch of times because I probably deserved like a lot. But that was always my go-to move. And then Greg and I would lock arms and do that and just be like, you got to fire us both, you know, and weirdly it like worked out for us. But the downside of the New 52, I think in a bigger way or in a different way, was that I wish we had a better plan for like there weren't rules to it and a plan for it the way there could have been that would have really helped organize it. Like, you know, well, history did happen, but these things are changed, or history didn't happen and it's brand new, or there wasn't a set of kind of guidelines that was really set in stone about what the regulations and sort of were, like what you couldn't do and could do,
how far you could push it.
Right. And then on top of that, it became really fluid. Like, well, if a book was doing well, they could kind of push things other books couldn't. But ultimately, there wasn't a story to it that had a lot of meat at that time. There were kind of ideas, and a lot of them, some of them were good, with Pandora and different things that people wanted to do.
Oh yeah, Pandora. That's right.
Yeah,
that was a whole thing.
I know. And Jeff had ideas. There were like I was in none of those ideas were mine. Like I was just barely, like I was just trying to survive, you know, back then.
Sure.
But it was interesting to watch and be like, oh, there isn't a meta story in place that would like use this to build to the next thing, and that we all are following these rules because this story is building. And one of my goals, once I kind of got better footing at DC, was to make things that we worked on sort of try to fit that mold a bit and be like, well, if we're doing metal, I don't want it to be something that just happens and doesn't have things on the other side. And what's on the other side, I want to make sure everyone is aware of ahead of time. And also we adjust to what people want to do internally, so that if they have series they want to do, we don't step on those, but maybe we can help elevate them by doing XYZ. Just a lot of conversations about how to make things work as one big forward-moving line, you know, like that you're all ideologically, you're all kind of in the same place at any given moment, you know, where it's like this moment, Rebirth, is about reconnecting to our past, but also trying some cool stuff. This moment, the New 52, is about brazen new things and, you know, blah, 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 but also this, you know, and those things were quite as concretized, you know, as they could have been, I think, sometimes at DC, especially with the New 52. But with Death Metal, when we got there in Infinite Frontier, it was like, we're going to make rules for this. Like, this is going to be these things, you know, because it was
rules to have less rules is neat. I like it.
Yeah.
I think it's cool.
You know? Yeah. You know,
I wish New 52 had this direction back then, because there are a lot of my favorite stories that kind of just like fizzled away. And I think that this is I really like what DC is doing right now.
Me too.
Cool.
I think they have a really loose. I like that they're kind of more freewheeling about the idea that there can be like multiple storylines within a franchise happening in different places, and Superman can be here, and this person
Mr.
can
Miracle,
take over, but that person isn't gone. And
I never understood when people would say like, oh well, you can't, like, Batman, if he's here in this story, then he can't be, doing this in this other book, and everything has to like work perfectly together when it's a different story. Because in my mind, I'm like, well, no, this is like, I can read Court of Owls and then I can go read some of Tynan's Batman the next day, and I'm not confused.
Yeah, it doesn't get in the way.
Right. I could go read Nightfall later, and then I could read, like, it's because they're different stories. So it's like it, and they do the same thing with the movies and stuff too, where it's like there's this weird like rule that people try to like tie themselves down with, and it doesn't really make any sense. And once you free yourself up to that and let people tell the stories that they want to tell and they're passionate about, then you get much better stories.
I agree, and as long as they're not openly contradicting each other in some way,
right?
That becomes, like, really difficult. Then, there's no. There's really no. I don't know. I just think it's just like you say. Like, people just want really good stories that feel like kind of a loosely shared universe, or a shared universe that's moving forward together, that doesn't contradict. But if you have a story that contradicts, you can do it in Black Label or do it somewhere else, and
it's amazing.
At the same point, if you can have this massive thing like Metal or something that pulls everything in, it's just great.
Yeah, that was the fun. Like, the point of Death Metal especially was that to say that like everything you love happened, like everything is real, everything matters. It's kind of saying, if you've ever read a comic and loved it, it is part of continuity in that way. If you're looking for us to say exactly how everything happened when, it's never going to work. Like, you can't. But what we're saying is, we're no longer going to say, well, this part of continuity didn't happen, this part did. Well, this thing, this thing we're erasing because this. It's like there were multiple timelines, there were multiple experiences by the characters. They all happened, meaning they all remember all of it, even if they conflict. Like, this thing from Grant and this thing from whatever. All Batman remembers all of it, and that's it. But we're not going to address it unless a writer is pulling from it. So, cool. Like, if somebody is pulling from Batman Inc., great. That happens. If somebody pulls from Zero Year or Year One, great. Whichever one you pull from, that's real. And that's the fun, is that we wanted to make it so that every story happened and was real and mattered. And now we can move forward feeling like, yes, the things you loved counted. And we made a lot of confusing moves over the years, but now we're going to move forward in a more streamlined way. That was my goal. Like, least.
Well, I love that you can. Good. It's also kind of up to the reader too. That it's like, if you want this to be important and part of it, then great, have that moment or arc be important to you. And if you didn't really like it, then just forget about it. Don't worry about it. It's
because it's a new story.
Don't let it ruin it for you if you didn't like that. Just read what you like.
I also feel like, I mean, I don't know. I just sometimes it's like, I wish people were open to having experienced it, but seeing how bad it can get for some people. Like, just give things a chance. Like, see what the story is. See how it goes. So before you hate it, you know what I mean?
Right.
Does knowing that the Metal cosplay characters were the most viewed New York Comic-Con for 2021 make you giddy?
Oh man, those pictures
were great.
Wild. They were huge. The cosplay was insane. Like, they were in a cosplay competition, and it was this whole team of people that, like, the costumes had moving parts and lit up, and there was a fog machine, and it was nuts. They had, like, it really was like amazing. So seeing anybody ever dress up like your stuff is a thrill. I mean, and there's a special joy that comes with that. But I remember when we were doing Court of Owls and we were 3 or 4 issues in, and I was like, I think there's room for it to be a crossover if you guys just want to have talents and other books and have fun. And we were I think it was at C2E2, and somebody came up dressed as a talent. I was talking to Bob Harris like on the con floor about that, pitching it to him like on the carpet at the DC booth, and being like, I think we can do this. And somebody came up dressed as a Talon, and I was like, oh my God, thank you so much. I've never had anyone cosplay anything I've done, and da-da-da. And I left, and he's like, you just got your crossover. Like, people dress like that stuff, like your Talons, like, we'll do your crossover. And I was like, so it does matter, like when people show that kind of enthusiasm, companies do notice.
What's like the most random cosplay from something that you've done that you've seen?
Oh, there's a lot. Jaro, probably the most
I was
random.
so hoping it was going to be Jaro. I almost asked, but
there was
best Robin.
Yeah, there was somebody dressed as a Starro in a jar. That was great. And
does Jaro have a high-pitched voice?
He didn't. Well, he was like, when I spoke to him, he was saying it was like telepathy. So it was like he was like, it's what you're hearing my voice, whatever it is, like as you're imagining. It's very like thought out. I was very
that's great.
Impressed at it. But no, there's been a ton. Like people dress up like Skinner and Pearl, and now I saw already cosplay from Noctera.
So has anyone done Blacktop yet?
Not Blacktop. That one.
No.
They've been some Valves, yeah. So
cool.
No, it's huge, man. It's honestly like it makes your whole con when you see that. The whole con is made when you see one person like dressed up like something you made up. So
yeah,
it means a lot.
That's awesome. So before we get to the end, we do have an important question we should ask. You've already answered it once, but we're going to see how well it matches up. Every time we talk with you, we're just going to check in. And what's your perfect burrito?
Oh, my perfect burrito? Oh, man. I mean, I'm really simple. Like I'm like a health nut. My I was like, I have like a metabolism designed to be like 600 pounds at all times. So I feel like
this is a burrito though that has 0 calories, no matter.
That's true. No matter what, 0 consequences. It's perfect.
Yeah.
Well, we order a lot of burritos here from all over the place. Like sometimes from just like Chipotle or Green Cactus or whatever around. But there's a good place nearby where we get, and they have. It's like I usually just get like chicken burrito, cheese, salsa, guac. Yeah. I mean, I'm a simple man, simple taste when it comes to.
That's all right.
So
that's cool.
I wish I had a really good answer for you where it was like deep fried with a pancake wrapped in it with that. But
no, we ask everyone every time, Taylor.
But just like know that we eat a lot of burritos in our house. So
that's the important thing.
It's well represented. Yeah.
That's cool.
I actually, we've never done our own
really?
burritos and on our show. We've never done it. We should sometime, but I have trouble.
Secret.
I have trouble thinking of it because I like variety so much that it's like it just depends on the day for me, or the moment for what I want in it.
Cop out.
Yeah.
But it's true.
What else have I not answered so far that people have?
Oh, you answered this for me last week, but everyone wants to know your favorite Dracula. I would love that because Universal Monsters are like, I'm thinking about my other sleeve tattoo, and I'm thinking it's going to be the Universal Monsters.
Oh, nice. Well, it has to be Bela Lugosi, though. I mean, like,
thank you.
Yeah. I mean, I like a lot of different Draculas over the years. I mean, my favorite vampire movie is Near Dark. And then, I love Let the Right One In and The Lost Boys and all that. But Near Dark was the one that really, like, sort of changed my world with it. But yeah, there's a lot of good vampires. Christopher Lee and like, I love the bloodshot eyes, all that.
Mm-hmm. Nick Cage. All-time Dracula.
Nick Cage, right? Exactly.
Any more questions, people? My sticky notes that I made were mostly answered or questions that people already asked, so that was very convenient.
I guess I'm interested if you have any Netflix or other streaming binges that you're doing right now. Just anything
outside of comics.
Yeah.
I watch a ton of I love TV. It's like serialized. Like I feel like it's, you know, I recommend it to everybody in class. I'm like, watch TV. It's a golden age of television with the streaming wars and all of that, like content, everything is getting snapped up. That's good. But yeah, I mean, the things that I'm watching the most of right now, I love Succession. I think is incredible. Like an amazing writing exercise. It's on HBO, but it's like how you get the show about a bunch of people that are every single person is really dislikable, but the show is like you can't stop watching it is fascinating. I don't know that I could do it. It's like I love watching it. My kids, my 14-year-old's like, and I watched Squid Games, which we loved. It was fun. It's like big over the top, like, you know, soapy bombast and violence and everything. I really like Shetland. I've been like doing all these like British mystery shows like Happy Valley and Shetland. And I did what was the other one? I'm not going to remember the name of the other British one, but Mayor of Easttown I thought was great too. We just watched that.
Oh man.
Yeah, I mean, it's nonstop. Like TV is just awesome right now. You know, it's so good.
Tyler wants to know if you've seen the Invincible show.
I did. I mean, I've only seen the first. Like, I'm not caught up on it, but we watched the first like 3 or 4 of them and I thought it was great.
First couple.
Yeah,
I like them a lot. Bearded wants to know if I'm a good student and if I turn my homework in on time.
Yes, you get an A all the
Yes.
time. I wish there was a way to like incorporate student work more, but I don't know how to do it. Like, because I can't. Obviously, there's over 2,000 people.
There's so many.
There's too many people.
So many people.
Like
we
so
can't
no
have
to
you
that.
grading homework because then we wouldn't be getting any comics.
Well, there's no way to open that door, but there's also like, you know, I'm trying to find a way of doing it where we can look at something by somebody and then I can talk about it in a way that is like a workshop, but looking at student work. But there's all kinds of pitfalls with that too, just both with the legality of it. Like, you know, you'd have to sign like some kind of release where it's like you don't accuse anybody of stealing your work ever from sharing it in that kind of a big forum. And
right.
So there's all kinds of like weird hurdles I'm learning about that, you know, they're like frustrating because I want to do it, but
when will you write a romance?
Well, Barnstormers is kind of a romance. So now
that's there
Stay
we go.
tuned.
Boom.
When are those?
When are we getting the new ones? It's after these are done, you said?
Yeah,
Okay.
they'll start the month after these finish. So these are between 6 and 7 issues essentially, with Demons being like the 3 oversized and then taking a break and then starting up again later. So the other 2 are 6 and I think it'll be 6 and 6, but it'll probably be 6. It might be 6 or 7. Ghoul might run 7 issues because the last issue is oversized, and it depends on whether Francesco wants to break it into 2. But anyway, the point is like they'll all end, or the next wave will start in the spring once these end, like right after.
Sweet, that's cool. So it's easy to know those end, and it's like then you just know here comes the next batch. That's neat.
Yep, exactly. It'll be just like, and the trades come out from the first batch at the same time too. So it's like, I mean the print, not trades. So like we have Demons will be not a trade, it'll be issues, but it'll be like that. All the print stuff starts when the digital next wave starts.
Cool. Oh, so then it'll start just being this cycle after that, I'm assuming.
Yeah. So you
That's
can
cool.
always like have a subscription and get more than your money's worth. That's the goal.
And then you grab the prints of whatever you really liked, and then you just keep
Right.
going.
Yeah,
I like it.
exactly.
That's fun. All right. Now that Chaos is caught up, that's all I've been waiting for.
Yeah, if he's caught up, then we should probably probably finish it up. He's been probably watching on 2x speed or something.
That must have been. That's impressive. He said that a long time ago. Thank you so much for being on again, Scott.
It's a pleasure. It's a pleasure. We should just do it more often. It's like
we absolutely should.
It's easy to talk to you guys and come out and have fun.
Once a wave.
Yeah. Right. No, I mean even more.
Anytime you want.
Yeah, sure. I'll come back. We're doing a couple things. Like maybe what about like in a couple months when Nocterra comes back? That'd be fun.
That'd be great.
We do either.
Sounds good to me.
Yeah, like when either December next month or January when we start the second arc. So either the Blacktop Bill one. Just tell me. Yeah. I'd be happy to.
Very
Dope.
Cool.
That'd be awesome because I already got those Nocterra graphics from last time. Easy peasy.
Yeah,
Just
let
load
me
them
know.
up.
I hope I'm like, if I want to make sure I'm like answering everything and a good guest on this, so I can take it.
I think that's great. I think we got everything.
You need to talk more about this or that or whatever. Just let me know. I'll listen.
No, that is,
well, maybe
excellent.
for next time we'll try to get it planned ahead. Maybe we'll get a lot more questions ahead of time too, so we can
go.
Yeah, sure.
Roll with a little
We
more.
can rapid fire.
Yeah.
Yeah, and thank you guys again. I always have a good
thanks
time.
everyone for being on.
Definitely by the time Witches comes back. Yeah.
Yep, there we go.
I just wanted Witches mentioned one more
That's
time.
That's the last one.
I promise we'll bring it back. I love the series. We'll bring it back. It'll happen.
But yeah. Thank you so much. Have a good night, everybody. Thank you. Thank you, Scott. Thank you, chat. You guys are amazing. This has been This Week in Comics with Scott Snyder. I'm Todd.
I'm Nick. You're Scott.
And he's Scott.
He's Scott.
Bye.